with that, it should not be a car that will deteriorate, or what did I say? That it will mash up before you finish paying for it. So even that you need to look at. You need to be able to save towards it before you buy it, right?
Okay.
We're not saying that you don't need to borrow some of it, but you need to save some of it so that you could have a decent down payment so that you could move forward.
Okay, to add to what Brother Jean-Francois said, some people go into debt without a budget, and then after the fact, when they know what the monthly payments are, they realize they can hardly eat after the loan is paid. So I would say before going into debt of any kind, you should plan a budget. And the budget, the first item on the budget should be what is not yours, which is what God has entrusted in our hands, our tithes and offerings. You should make sure you have allowance for your family's food, because you do not want that your family cannot eat because you're paying a card note. You know, make a budget and then see what you can afford. So you will not be paying $3,000 a month when you can only afford one. So the thing is all about planning. Ensure that you can manage the payments that will inevitably come from the debt.
Right. I like the idea of planning. And when it comes to money, planning has to do a lot with budgeting. The government operates on a budget. They plan the revenue the spending of the revenue that they receive. And that means that in any fiscal year, any budgetary year, if something happens, for instance, if there is a landslide somewhere, right, and they did not budget for that eventuality, let's put it that way, that landslide, repairing that landslide would wait until the next year. The church as well operates on a budget. The money that the church receives is budgeted. There's planning, right? And heads of department are aware of that. But unfortunately, many households and perhaps most families do not operate on a budget, and they spend, and that might include me as well, on an ad hoc basis. So we pass somewhere and we see, say, oh, that's nice, we just buy it, right? We had not planned for that. Perhaps we know that our money does not stretch that far, right? But we still buy it. And oh, there's a sale somewhere, and then we just buy it. We buy without a budget. We spend without a budget. And therefore, this is a very important principle as far as I'm concerned. Planning the spending of our money by developing a budget on a monthly basis. Sister.
Okay, concerning what Brother Jean-Francois said, the way I understood it is, if I have $20,000, it would be wise that I invest it into something that will not depreciate. And instead of going and buy a car that might, well, the same day I buy it or a few months after I buy it, I might have an accident and I lose that money. It would be better to invest it into something that would have a more value, that I could sell it and make more money out of it. Okay? Like if I have 20,000 and I buy a piece of, let's say, well, land is not 20,000, but if I buy a little house for 20,000 and I can sell it for 40,000, then I make a profit. But if I buy the car and the car smash, I still owe on that car. So that wouldn't be a wise spending for me. So that is what I grabbed from what Brother Jean-Francois said.
Right. Brother Small.
Forgive me, church, I'll say something that is a little bit controversial to what people accept today, because people don't like to feel like they cannot have something. But the reality is that having a financial plan means that it's something that's going to be long term. Your budget and everything ties into that, because you cannot have a financial plan without putting a proper budget in place. And with reference to the car thing, if you cannot afford something, it's not a good idea to buy it. If you cannot afford it, don't buy it. In terms of the feasibility of purchasing vehicles nowadays, cash, it is possible, because if you go on Facebook, you'll see them going for between 5,000, 10,000, you can get something reasonable that should at least last you for next year, 2 years, 3 years, where you'll be in a better position after that for you to do what you have to do. If you need it. If you don't need the car, don't spend the money on the car, because you'll have the debt. And the type of car you'll be able to buy, they will not insure it comprehensive. That means if it writes off, you lose everything. And accept the facts that maybe this might not be what is good for me, even though this is what I want right now. So that's what I'll say.
Okay. Yeah, very well. John chapter 6, verses 5 to 12. John 6, verses 5 to 12. Yeah. Will you? John 6. Yeah, we're looking at John 6. Okay, while the technicians are finding the passage, relevant passage, I'll read it. Okay, it's here. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread that they may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, There is a lad here which have 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? And Jesus said, Make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Panel.
First, I am looking at Philip's dependence on God. I mean, it was ridiculous in the normal setting that you have over 5,000 men, plus women and children, let's say about 15,000 people, and you are bringing me one boy's lunch, no matter how large the lunch is, in response to Philip's faith, and then so many people were fed. But what is very interesting to me is verse 12. When they were filled, that's after everybody had eaten, that is when Jesus said to gather up the fragments. Everybody was already filled, so